there are several things coming in. There's several mitigating factors that are driving this increase in suicide. We've just come out of COVID, where kids have been in isolation for the last 3 or more years.
All the challenges are happening to us because they're going to make you a better version of yourself. If you end it where it is hardest, you will not be able to see what is the brighter part on the other end. So give yourself the benefit of the doubt that this too shall pass. Yes, this too has come to pass. It has not come to stay.
It has to be more than just preaching to them. So what we do suicide prevention strategies through things that are highly engaging for children. So we do it through music production, music engineering, digital animation, coding, how to make games. And we teach the techniques to a group of children. And then they teach it back in the form of PSA announcements, videos, short podcasts, things of that nature that we can then stream through the app and hopefully get this out to the nation. My name is Chanda Spates, and I am the founder of, a couple different organizations. I'm the founder of Flourish Foundation Project, which is our nonprofit. I'm also the founder of FISAPS. Together along with about 80 other companies, we are DADAP, the National Suicide Prevention and School Safety Coalition. So we are on a mission to make communities safe and caring.
On a mission to make communities safe. That is very interesting now. Okay, now tell me a bit about your background. So, what do you remember about your infancy, you growing up as a young adolescent? Because here in Obehi Podcast, we do spend a lot of time talking about our story. We believe that our story is an instrument that we can use for ourselves, in our favor. Of course, that is a choice because if we refuse to use our story, other people can use it, but we are not sure if that is going to be for our interest. So we take time to learn about our story. So tell me, what do you remember about your adolescent growing up when you were born?
Oh, so I'm a military brat. I am a preacher's kid. So that's a unique combination of things. So I grew up everywhere. I'm from Fayetteville, North Carolina, where Fort Bragg is located. I think it's called Fort Liberty now. I've traveled extensively. I've lived in Panama, Germany. I've traveled to several countries in just in leisure along those times as well. So that's my background of where I grew up. We were never in one place more than 4 years because every 4 years, every 3 to 4 years, the military would take us somewhere else. So I've lived in several places, several countries, and that gives me a well-rounded background in different cultures that I have experienced. Um, I went to college in Fayetteville, North Carolina, at Fayetteville State University and HBCU. I did my master's in here in Charlotte, North Carolina, at Keller Graduate School, and that's a master's in HR. And I worked in corporate for several years. What I do in corporate life is HR background, and I also do gap analysis for businesses, mostly towards sales and customer service. So what are the gaps and things that we can do to meet our KPIs for different businesses?
All right, thank you so much for that. Now, still looking at your background now okay, before you became a professional in what you are today, I'm trying to understand what could have been contributed to your choice of career, to your choice of what you want to be, or how was even the state, how was even your environment as you were growing up? What do you remember as some of the things that could have been influencing you, and forming your opinion or something? Help me understand what we can hold up to.
Mm, okay. Well, growing up, I think the travel influenced me because I was able to experience a lot of different cultures. I grew up in several different states, north and south, so I was able to experience a lack of racism, and then I experienced a lot of racism, just from different places of living. And then I was able to spend my teenage years mostly in Germany, where it was a completely different culture because everyone was just happy to see someone that was also American. So it was a much more blended culture where everyone just you didn't really see race there. So that was influencing. And then as far as where I am here now, what that story is, I've actually fell into where I am. So sometimes your life experiences kind of propel you and push you and cause you to pivot. And that's what happened to me and my family. My oldest son has cerebral palsy, so he walks with a significant limp. And when he transitioned from middle to high school, there was a lot of bullying and different things of that nature where it got to an extreme level where he was rushed from school by ambulance, 2 concussions, because the kids picked on him based on how he walked. Um, Following that, he attempted suicide, which is how I got into the suicide realm of my life. Because I did what I knew to do, which is gap analysis for businesses. So I did a gap analysis on teen suicide, what's driving it, what is helping, what services and programs help make a difference. Because I was looking for something that would make a difference with my child. When you get to children in counseling, the children are the highest group for non-compliant, for not going to their scheduled appointments and things of that nature, because we're giving kids an adult solution, but they're still in a mindset of a child. So we have to do things that meet children where they are. And when I started studying and finding out what does work, I put that together, created a mobile app, created a nonprofit. Now we have a nonprofit, a mentoring agency, counseling agency, and a social impact mobile app company. And together we form a coalition solely based for making our communities and schools safer.
Now, I want to believe that a great percentage of what you are, the people that you are working on might be people of African descent, African diaspora, or African American. Is it fair to say that, or maybe I'm over exaggerating?
It is not on purpose. Suicide is affecting every demographic, and it doesn't matter, if you're male or female, you still have an impact. Um, so I think that when people see me and I'm the face, then they think or assume it's for African Americans only, but it is not. We're all our slogan and tagline is all hands on deck, because this affects us all. And we have to do something about it because it's gotten to a point where it's at what I would call critical mass. There was an announcement in September of last year by the United States Department of Defense that said the suicide rate has reached a level where it's actually a measure of national security. So it's that important and it affects us all. So it is not just African Americans, it's everyone. But the people that have come in, as we're completely 100% volunteer staff, is who we have at this moment. But we welcome everyone and we want everyone to be involved.
When you made up your mind, okay, now you have this case very close to you, and you have your children going through therapy. So this is something that sort of touched you personally, so that you are involved in this campaign now because you want to help also other people. When you made up your mind that this is what you wanted to do, you wanted to spend your time, because I believe that you are not doing this as a kind of as a passion or as a kind of a sideline. You are really like fully dedicated to it. Is that correct?
Fully dedicated, yes.
Okay, if you are fully dedicated your time to it, your energy and also your emotion, that means that you are really taking it seriously. So when it got to that point, what did you have to do? Did you was it at that point that you got in contact with other people to say, hey, let's study what we can do, or did you just started to move around, try to spend all your energy to see what can work for you? Then other people then decide to come and join you. Help me understand. I'm trying to understand how you manage to form the basis, the frame of what you are working on today.
Honestly, it started on social media. I made a post, and that particular post, I don't know if it really got to the level of viral, but it went crazy for a while. And the original post was, "Hey, I have this child that is suicidal, and I'm afraid to go to work. I can't go to work comfortably because I'm afraid what he might do when I'm not here." But I was a single mom and I needed to go to work. So you have these things pulling at you. So what originally happened was a group of people in my local community, and we babysat our children. Like, we paired people together that had opposite shifts. If you work day and I work nights, and we could watch each other's children. Um, it was literally that. And then it became talking in my kitchen saying, okay, what can we do about this? And then dive into it, because I had a circle of friends and family. We're all professionals. And I'm like, we should be able to think of something. This is not something that we cannot solve. So we started brainstorming and coming up with different ideas. I came up with the concept for the mobile app after doing my research and putting it all together, looking at what the um, contributing factors were for suicide, and then how do we make a difference. But as far as getting other people on board, it was really like you said with your podcast of telling a story. I told the story of my son's battle with bullying, and in a matter of a couple of days, I went from 300 followers to over 5,000, um, of other people that were going through similar stories. So I found out that I wasn't alone, that my child wasn't alone, that this is actually a common problem. And then when we could put it in that perspective, I said, let's change this narrative. So many times, what you see is awareness campaigns, and they're telling you that this is how many people attempt suicide, or these are how many children attempt suicide. But I don't see conversations about what are the solutions. What can we do about that? How can we make that stop? Um, so when I started having the conversation of, okay, you can talk 1 or 2 minutes about what the problem is, but after that, I want this conversation to move to what do we do to solve it. And then I did not take no for an answer. I contacted the people that are decision makers at key companies, and I made appointments. I talked to legislators, and I said, we're going to fix this. We're going to do our best to fix it. If we can't fix it in the world, if we can't fix it in the nation, then we can at least fix it here. And when you get enough people together that have that same intent, that's when you can make a difference. So it's truly the power of one person that makes a ripple effect and ignites everyone else. And then just coming up with different ideas. So now we have over 80 companies connected with my organization, and we are actively coming up with solutions together. We have started mentor programs, we have the counseling agency, we have the mobile app. We're working on 2 video games to train kids on peer support. So we are looking at the problem, analyzing it, and then coming up collectively with solutions. And I would like to also put out, we're doing it unfunded. Um, Sometimes people wait for funding or wait for the right time. There's never a right time. The only right time is now. So what we do is volunteer based. It's service in kind grants. I have a service in kind grant that allows us to give away 500,000 brand new Android tablets per month, with free AT&T Wi-Fi. So we're breaking the barrier for kids getting access to the resources that are needed because they don't have internet access or something of that nature. So we're taking and saying, okay, what are the mitigating factors that make this a problem escalated? And how can we break down those problems on whatever level we can with the resources that we can? And when we have the combination of the story, the face, forward thinking, solution minded conversations and discussions, and we keep having those discussions. We are having those discussions in corporate spaces. We're having those discussions in mental health agencies, in community forums, and parent to parent talks. We're having those discussions online, and we're saying to our local legislators, our local leaders, whether it's the county, the city, or the state, or the United States, um, we're saying we as parents cannot afford to lose this generation, and that's what we're doing. We had 1.3 million children attempt suicide between 2020 and 2022, just for that short span of time during the pandemic. 65,000 of those kids actually committed suicide, actually were successful in ending their lives. Um, and it's gotten to just enormous rates to the point where suicide among teens and young adults ages 14 to 24, according to the Department of Defense, has reached a level that it's impacting recruiting for military. That's a national security risk. And me as a parent, that tells me we're losing an entire generation of children. We can't let that happen. We can't wait for someone else to fix it. We have to do it ourselves. So this is us saving ourselves. This is parents coming together and doing whatever is necessary to get our kids' attention, to let them know that we hear them, and to give them the tools and techniques and the framework and the mindset of what they can do to handle challenges and not to think that suicide is the answer, because it's not. And I think a lot of times kids don't realize that suicide is a permanent solution. They're looking at games and you can reset and you get new lives. But that's not how it works in real life. And we need kids to realize that in a real tangible way.
That is a very important point, Dave. Anyway, I'll come to that. The idea that it looked like a game, but this is not a game. This is real. You see, just now I was reading an article, and let me see if I can share with you. I think that is coming from the American Psychological Association, which says that more than 20% of teens have seriously considered suicide. And of course, under it, there you read that the most alarming trend in recent years has been a sharp rise in suicide. And of course, this case they are looking at among Black youth aged 10 and 24. That for me is alarming, is truly alarming. Okay, I understand that you are not focusing only on African diaspora or maybe on only African American. We care about all life. All lives are important, but for a small section of the population like that to have that percentage, I think it is staggering. Now, I want you to tell me, what do people feel? I mean, not the young people now, not the teenage people. I'm talking of the adult. What do they feel when they see statistics like this? That a lot of young people are just wasting away. They're just decided to take their life as if it's a game, like you said. Only that this is not a game, but this is real. You are losing it never to come back again. What do you hear people talk about?
Good question. I think what we hear people talking about is everyone acknowledges that it is a problem and that it's reached national security levels. Um, the highest number of suicides is actually among elderly, but I think that, like I said, every population is actually impacted, and in certain areas, it has reached extremes, like the 20% number that you're talking about with African American or Black youth. It's a stark increase because that wasn't the case before. Maybe 4 or 5 years ago, it was very rare to see that in our community. So now we're seeing it more. And I think what that's coming from is that we're seeing that we're talking about it more. We're seeing it in the music. You know, there are songs out here that talk about suicide as an answer for problems, like when your boyfriend breaks up with you and things of that nature. And I won't say the name of it, but that song is actually on the charts right now. You know, basically, if your boyfriend breaks up with you, kill him and his girlfriend. And We know as adults that that's not acceptable. And maybe on some level, kids know it as well. But if you hear things enough, you're going to start thinking that that is a norm, and that is acceptable. So there are several things coming in. There's several mitigating factors that are driving this increase in suicide. We've just come out of COVID, where kids have been in isolation for the last 3 or more years. They don't have the socialization skills that they normally would get from going to school because they've been doing remote schooling. Then you have influences that were never there before for these generations, which is we have now social media, we have television, and we have music all giving these negative answers. Um, and then we also have to look at algorithms for what we see in the social media. If you play one video, whatever that one video is, that category is automatically fed to you more and more and more. So if you pick something that is negative, if you pick something that talks about suicide or pick something that's sad, it's going to give you more of that. And if kids aren't aware and cognizant of that, if we're not teaching them to be mindful of what they choose in their selections, then they don't know, and that's all they see. It's the same thing that we used to talk about maybe 4 or 5 years ago. We talked about body shaming and we talked about um, appearances and images, and it was because kids were looking at what they saw on TV and on social media and what they saw on advertisements and magazines as these perfect shapes for bodies and these perfect, you didn't have any zits on your face and things of that nature. And kids were overcritical of themselves based on this erroneous view of what reality is. So if we're not having conversations with children that say, yes, you're seeing a lot of this, but what is feeding that is this algorithm that brings you that type of thing, that may not actually be the majority. So we need to start having those type of conversations and education for kids so they have the right framework to create a mindset so that they can effectively evaluate what they see and what they hear, and not only evaluate it, but go one step further into now, not only can I evaluate it, but I can also be purposeful in how I manage it. I'm in control of what I allow myself to see. I'm in control of what I allow myself to hear. And I'm in control of what I allow myself to think. We can teach them about positive affirmation statements. And when you have that negative self talk and you're telling yourself you want to kill yourself and you're telling yourself, I'm not good enough, how do you stop that? Um, we have to do more than just awareness. Awareness is not enough. It's one thing to be aware that this happens, but if we're not giving kids the toolkit and the techniques to make a difference, we're not going to save them. And it has to be more than just preaching to them. So, what we do suicide prevention strategies through things that are highly engaging for children. So we do it through music production, music engineering, digital animation, coding, how to make games. And we teach the techniques to a group of children. And then they teach it back in the form of PSA announcements, videos, short podcasts, things of that nature that we can then stream through the app and hopefully get this out to the nation. So um, we have a song out now called Pain Talk, Paintalk, by The Real Mike. And that is actually it's the stage name for one of our students. But he is talking about his experience with suicide, with having those negative self talk, and then he's teaching in song and in music that sounds like any other song you would hear today. But that song is telling kids, when you have those thoughts, tell yourself to hold on. It's just the pain talk. And that message is the message that I want to see. I want to see those songs downloaded and it being mainstream so that we're not getting this plethora of negativity going to our kids that's fueling them to their demise. I'm tired of burying children. I'm tired of going to um, children's funerals, and I've been to several. Um, I've close friends that have lost children. I was blessed enough that my child survived, but that's not everyone's story. And we have to do something different, and we have to stop being reactionary. We have to be proactive and preventive. We have to do something now before it's too late.
Thank you again for the work that you are doing. It's highly valuable to the community, to all of us, and to humanity. Uh, because we need to survive. We need to be alive. You see, in the culture where I am coming from, of course, I don't need to tell you again that I am an African, which of course you know. Suicide is something that is not, it's almost like a crime. You are not supposed to take your life. All right, now I am thinking suicide. What is the idea even coming from? Since when have we decided that our life is something that we can take at will? Now, when I say that in African culture, that you were not supposed to consider suicide as like, okay, I'm tired, let me just take my life, is because life, the life that you live, is actually the life that you are sharing. It doesn't belong to you alone. It belongs to all of us. We are sharing this energy. You are not supposed to put an end to it. So, where is this idea coming from?
I don't know. Um, I can tell you my opinion. I can't tell you if it's right or not. But it goes back quite a ways. People did in their lives, even in medieval times. Um, it's never been like 2023 is the highest rate in history. So I think that the suicide has always been there. Um, but what is different is that it's never been such a commonly accepted answer. It used to be that it was rare, and it would be mostly in the case of elderly that were very ill. Um, it wasn't this thing. I don't think we've ever seen anything like what we're seeing now, where children are turning to suicide. Now, why is that happening? I think again that's several different things. We have this perfect storm happening where we have an increased access to things that would allow them to take their lives. You have greater access to guns. You have greater access to um, medications that can be abused to take their own lives. We also have more access to that thought process, that ideation. So they're seeing it in what they view in music and in TV. They're seeing more violence on television with the stories that we tell. And even on news, news stories tend to focus on crimes. You focus on crimes, you focus on these horrific things that happen across the nation, but it's rare to see that human interest story that says something positive. So everything that you see in every area of your life, whether it's in school, you see bullying, and on the news, you see crime, and on televisions and movies, you see death and violence, and then you have access. What would we expect? We've poisoned our own children's minds, and we've given them the tools to move forward if they decide that's the path they want to take. And there is a problem with that. And the problem isn't going to be just my app or just my mentoring program. The problem is going to take legislative action. It's going to take countries coming together saying this is something that we need to look at, and this is, there's a statistic, and I can't call it off the top of my head, but there's a high number of suicides among women in some non-industrial countries. I believe it was India, but don't quote me on that. But That's something that we have to actually look at. And what we can show as a universal is that suicide is coming and stemming from a place of despair. So when challenges come, and challenges will come in life, if we haven't equipped people, and especially children, with the tools, resources, knowledge, and the framework of how do I handle a crisis, then these other things become options that shouldn't be options. So we need to, the word is mental resiliency. How do we make our kids and our people and our population and our cultures mentally resistant? How do we teach people to handle crisis? How do we teach people to understand that the problem you have today isn't always, and to look for those solutions? And then, more than even that, can we teach ourselves to be empathetic? And I think one of the things that you're talking about with the African culture, where you just don't take your life and you share this life, that's a beautiful thing, but that's cultural. That's coming from a culture that says, I care equally about myself and my community because I understand my place in that community. But when we have an isolated society, we don't have that same mindset. We don't have that same framework. And as we get more isolated and more industrialized and we work from home and we don't have those interactions, and you spend more and more hours working to where you're not spending time with your children because you're working 2 or 3 jobs, then these are the things that happen because unintentionally we're not giving them the tools and resources that they need to make better decisions.
All right, because I'm thinking, because sometimes when we are going through situations, we try to make comparison, we compare and contrast. This is because a human being are not the only entity that live on Earth. We also have animals that are living with us. We are just one of the species of animals, no? We are not the only animals sharing life. If we look at other animals, do we see them committing suicide so that we can say, okay, well, it's just a part of life? Is there something that you can share there?
Let's see. I don't think so, and definitely not to the scale that we have as humans. Now, could you probably say that a whale beaching itself at the end of its life might be committing suicide? I don't know. We will never know because we don't know what animals think. Um, but what we do know is that it's never been at this level, and we have to make a difference and we have to do something different about it. I think that we have to start the conversation of, I think it's good to understand what a problem is, but even more so, we have to at some point start taking the conversation to what are the solutions? How can we get kids and people to embrace life so that they see it as the gift that it is, that they can find purpose with that life, and that they can also learn to put challenges and problems in mindset and frameworks of not being final. There are challenges and challenges come. At the time when I was going through this thing with creating this app, my son was going through bullying at school. Um, and he was being bullied by a gang. So it was like 22 kids against this one child. They didn't like the way they walked because he had cerebral palsy. And the school couldn't or wouldn't suspend that many students at one time. Um, on top of having a double lumpectomy to remove cancerous cells in my breast, on top of going through a divorce. So you're talking about having multiple challenges at one time. And if you're not mentally resilient, that instance could have taken a left turn. Um, but thankfully, I had a framework that I could use. For my personal framework, it was my belief in God. And I know that God won't give me more than I can bear. And that framework, whether you have that belief or not, you have to believe in something that gives you a framework that you can handle challenges. Because I know that even though that was a horrible time and it felt like the world was ending, here I am today. You have to know that where you are isn't the end, that as long as you have breath in your body, as long as you have one more day, there's something else that you can do. And then we have to be able to teach ourselves and our kids to be advocates. You know, how do we have conversations that say, hey, I'm having these very dark thoughts. I don't think I can do life anymore, and have that conversation. If we're not able to teach our kids to articulate their needs, then we're not going to know. And that's why we are so reactionary. We are constantly seeing on the news reports of a child committing suicide or a mass shooting, and the person being interviewed is saying, well, this person was isolated. They were down for several weeks. We're not giving our kids the tools to understand that that's a red flag and what to do with that information. How do you take that to an adult and then train our adults to know how to respond? So, again, it's a very complex situation, but it is going to take us doing more. And I think we do a good job now. We have programs out that train administrators and school teachers and things of that nature. But we are, I would say, at an F for training children to be their own advocates. And we're constantly telling kids what to do. We're not giving them critical thinking skills. If they are taught that they can't have a voice and they can't speak up, how do we expect them to solve it or speak up when it becomes critical and we're learning too late? So I am an advocate for teaching self-advocacy for children. And it's a funny story. We have in our mobile app this thing called a behavior superpower. So it's a the world's only, literally the world's only behavioral science profile, similar to a personality test that you would take in a corporate situation. This company called Dream Smart contacted me and said, "How can we help?" And I looked at what they did, and they have 35 or 40 years in the business of behavioral science, and they created this behavioral profile for teens and young adults. So as long as 12 or 13 can take it, and it tells them what their personality type is. It tells them a little bit about the other personality type, but it gives them the framework and the words and the verbiage of how to advocate for themselves. How do you talk with your parents? So I'm an adapter. So if you throw me in a situation, I'm just going to adjust to it. Probably something to do with that military background and having to move so much, but I'm an adapter. But someone else might be a reflective thinker and they're very slow to move or take action. But if you can have those personality types in your toolbox of how to manage life, then we're equipping kids to say, oh, I see my mom as a reflective thinker. I should approach her this way. And not only that, but they're understanding the strengths that they have, and they're understanding how to manage those idiosyncrasies in their own personality so that they can learn to articulate when they need something. And that is critical to the suicide prevention. I think it's critical in life. But not only that, this personality test, this behavioral science profile, cross matches what your personality is with the 1,200 federal job codes. Because there is a research study by the CDC that came out in March of this year that says if we can get kids on a forward thinking path looking at a career, then we can reduce suicide ideation by up to 50%. So I was thrilled to see that because 3 years before that study came out, we were already on this path of creating this thing. It's just taken a long time to get it done because we haven't been funded. So, it took sacrifice. I sold my car, I sold a truck, we put ourselves on a budget to get it done, but now it's done. But I'm very proud of what we've come up with, and I'm super excited about this framework that we have for children because we're giving them a toolkit that is needed. But not only is it needed, it's going to allow them to leapfrog and jump forward, um, because it's going to give them the words that they need, the verbiage that they need. It helps frame their mindset, and it gives the self advocacy, but it also builds empathy. This program that we have teaches kids to look for those signs of distress in other kids and to proactively tell an adult. Um, this will save lives. This will save lives. And one of the things I want to point out that I think, which is why I'm really glad that we're on your podcast, this is a global solution. If we can put this in the hands of teens and young adults around the world, we can tell, let's say we give it to school A and school B. We can track, not the child, but tracking that location. And I can say, okay, Principal A, your school has an uptick in bullying questions. And Principal B or School B, your school has an uptake in suicide questions. We can literally proactively, without violating any type of privacy issues, say to that school administrator, these are the early warning signs of what's going on in that school, so we can start preventing these things. This is what's needed. Can you imagine how many school shootings that we could probably avoid if we could do this? And we can, because it's built. It's built. We just need people to now adopt it.
So what I'm understanding from there is that sometimes there are these red signs that are suggested that something is happening or is about to happen. Maybe sometimes we're not paying enough attention to those signs, those warning that say something is happening. Maybe if we are paying enough attention, we'll be able to resolve the problem before it becomes too late. I want to believe that is part of what you're saying there. All right.
Yes, that's right.
Now, I'm sort of concerned about those who didn't make it. I will come to those who have made it, or those who are in the crisis, but who need solutions so that they can make it. But let's take some moment to think about those who didn't make it. When you go to analyze their situation, I don't know, maybe you get a letter that they have left behind, or you manage to hear somebody who spoke to them before they make their final decision. What is their justification? Well, I'm asking this question because suffering is everywhere. It is not the person who committed suicide that have suffered most. There are those who have suffered most, who are really living in suffering, but they are still there strongly to be alive. Because I repeat again, life is for us to share. It is not for you to terminate. You are supposed to fight for it. If somebody say, put a gun on your head, don't just, hey, shoot me, I'm dead. No, you need to fight to be alive. If hunger is about to take your life, you don't just give it up. You don't give up. You fight to be alive. Because you are alive not for yourself alone, but for the entire humanity. Could you imagine if Elon Musk committed suicide when he was 18? What about Steve Jobs? You don't want to tell me that these people as teenagers didn't have problems. So
very true.
Yeah. So I want you to share with me, what do you gather as a kind of justification of why they make the ultimate decision to terminate their life?
Again, we'd have to speculate because there's no way to know after the fact. But some of the things for people that have survived, and then you go back and ask and talk to them, most of the times it's loneliness. People feel that they are alone and people feel that they do not have any control over what happens to them. When people feel alone and they feel like someone that no one cares. So isolation, loneliness, abuse often can be a trigger. Um, we just it's it goes back to, again, sharing the life. I think you nailed it there for the problem and the solution. So if we're not sharing life, then you're going to feel a disconnect. And I think that's what we're seeing. We're not sharing life anymore. We're moving and we're walking in parallel lines and we're not touching each other. So that's the difference. If you are not having conversations, we're not sitting and having dinner at the table together anymore. You spend 8, 9, 10 hours at work. If you spend 7 or 8 hours sleeping, there's only so much time left. And when is that bonding time with that special person that's in your life, whether it's a parent, a child, a sibling, or whomever? And then when you have isolation without resources and frameworks for resolutions, like the resilient thing that says, I need to fight for life, or the resilient says that I have self autonomy. I know that I can change my life. If you don't have that in your toolkit, then despair brings in the next picture. And things that are not acceptable answers become acceptable to that person. So, what's fueling it is isolation. What's fueling it is loneliness. What's fueling it is the inability to solve those things. As we get connected, we'll see these things get better. Um, but again, we have to look at making safe and caring communities because we have a tendency to look for the negative, to assume the worst, um, to not give the benefit of the doubt. You're looking at police shootings and people literally getting murdered in the streets by police officers. And then we're being told that, oh, but it's not all. Um, no, it's not all. But even one is too much. So we have to make sure that we're educating people to be empathetic and to care about other people, whether or not they look like you. And especially if they don't look like you. Because at the end of the day, we're all human. We have this human race. But we have put ourselves in silos, we've divided ourselves up, and now we have these people are isolated sitting next to you can be sitting next to someone and be completely alone. And that's critical.
All right. I want us to go back to what you were saying before. When these young people look at their life like a video game, even me too, I've made a lot of reflection about this idea of reverse or Control Z, that is Control Z or in the computer sense, no? That maybe you are writing something, you make a mistake, then you revert to where you were before, you come back. At the point I was, what maybe I'm working and I make mistake, can I reverse? There are things that in life that you cannot reverse. There are irreversible action that you can take. You can do nothing about it. You just need to move forward. So I'm sort of wondering, where did these young people get this idea of looking at life like a game that you can just play it again in the sense that I can take my life anytime I want. I can come back again. But it's not like that. That is a video game. That is a simulation, which is far different from real life.
Mhm.
How are we getting
It
to that
is.
point?
I don't think that they think that. I don't think they think that deep into it. I don't think that they can level set it. Like we're telling them you can't take it back, you can't undo it. But I don't think they're looking forward to that. I don't think that children that attempt suicide are thinking of the impact that it's going to have on their parents or their siblings by having that loss in their life. Um, I don't think that they understand the toll that it's going to take when they make those final decisions. So they they have this idea with video games that they can play and they're familiar with the reset so that it makes us they don't really understand the true impact of death. They don't understand the finality of death. They don't understand the ripple effect that it's going to have because when the game and you pass on a game, you just start your game over, but you're never shown what it's going to be um, at the funeral or living with that loss. They don't see that and they don't think far enough ahead to think of that. If they did, maybe they wouldn't make those decisions. But again, it's hindsight 2020. What we have to look at is how do we get kids to understand and give them the understanding that they can create their life no matter what you're going through right now. You can be in the worst situation, but that some situation is temporary. What can we do? What can you do? Who can you reach out to make that change? We have to let kids understand and let people understand that you can make a difference. You can pivot. You can change your life. You can become whatever it is that you set your mind to. You have to just put it in path and you have to set a stage for that. But oftentimes, what we do is we tell children where they should be. You should be here. You should be graduating. You should be doing this. You should be doing that. But we never tell them the path on how to get there. We don't say you need a left turn here and a right turn there. So if we're giving them these holistic views and not ever giving them the map and the roadmap, then we're not giving them the tools that they need. We're setting them up for failure. We're leaving them vulnerable. And that's what's happening. And that's one of the things I think is leading into the suicide crisis is that we are not giving critical thinking skills. We are not teaching those things anymore in school. We are doing lots of math, lots of science, lots of reading, um, but interaction is less and less. I used to be a teacher, and there's a value to different types of learning styles and movement in the classroom and changing groups. But we're still putting people in rows. Kind of metaphorically, we're putting them in rows and in silos, and we have to let people feel comfortable enough to be vulnerable, feel comfortable enough to say when they need help, and for the ones that are listening and the ones that encounter that, we have to teach them how to respond. We have to let them know where resources are. One of the problems that we have is that resources are in silos. There's several programs where I live that are phenomenal programs. No one knows they're there. So that's one of the things that this app can do. We can put up to 120 different organizations in one app. So this app could be city by city and give you one app, single sign on access to different resources that help support mental health. The other thing is that we have to understand that people don't wear badges that say, hey, I'm suicidal. It's not that common. It's nothing stuck on your forehead. It's not a badge that you wear. And sometimes people are smiling and laughing and talking, and every day they're battling in their own minds. So, what we have to understand is that, again, these solutions have to be proactive and preventive. We have to give them the toolkit of how to manage crisis before the crisis arrives to be truly effective. And then when a crisis arrives, we have to be immediately responsive. And a lot of times we wait. Oh, it'll be okay. It'll be all right. You'll feel better tomorrow. But sometimes tomorrow doesn't come. So we have to, again, focus on preventive solutions. And for teens, we have to reach them where they are. You know, one of the things that they'll do, the first treatment for children with depression and anxiety tends to be counseling. And I am a proponent of counseling. I have a counseling center. So I agree that you do need counseling, but I disagree at what that counseling should look like. So if you walk into our facility, you see couches haphazardly scattered around. You see festive colored walls. You see podcast studios. You see music studios. Because our counseling and therapy looks different. Because it's meeting kids where they are. Kids are not going to go and sit on a couch and pour their soul and all their problems to a person that they don't know, that 9 times out of 10 doesn't look like them. But what they will do is express themselves in music and song. What they will do is write it down. And if we can bring therapy into this new digital age, then I think we can reach them and make a difference. And we can start moving the needle back. So we're dialing back the suicide rate that's escalating out of control. That's what needs to happen. We need kids. How many kids? And again, for me, music is just that universal everything, whether it's rap or reggae or some other Caribbean vibe. Music meets everyone where they are. So if we can put positive messages in the music and send that out, we can reach more people. And I think they'll hear us. So that's one of the things that we do. Um, will that be the only answer? No, never. And I encourage, one of the things that we do with Flourish Foundation is we encourage collaborative solutions. We want to know, what do you have? What are you willing to give? And let me pair it with someone over here that has this. And let's put that together and make it a program to service children in our area. And then I want to teach other cities to do the same thing. This is, again, it's a local program here in Charlotte. It has national impact. I want to see these organizations sprouting up. I want to see DADAP Charlotte, DADAP Atlanta, DADAP London, DADAP Dubai, DADAP anywhere. Because what we built was a blueprint. You can replicate it. It's just about connecting. What resources do you have? What works for kids? How can we get them these suicide prevention strategies of how to manage whatever crisis they're going through, and to choose a positive answer, to choose life instead of choosing to end their life. If we do that and we're more proactive, then we're going to move the needle. And the solution may not look like what it looks like in Charlotte. It may be different in another area because that's what that culture is there. But one thing I do know is that there are people in your city that have solutions. But until you talk to each other, you're not going to make a difference. So bringing these companies together is what's making the difference.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
All right. Now I am thinking. You said something, a lot of interesting thing there. You talk of the idea that we need to go meet the children where they are, which is of course what is often said when you are tempted to provide a solution to the people. You don't just design it somewhere and bring it to them. You need to meet them to even understand what they want. Maybe they are going to, maybe by talking to them, they will help you understand what they want. Then, if you work with them, the solution will actually come. Rather than maybe you somewhere thinking that this is what the people want, you design it. Sometimes you reach there, the sizes is that none the same. So now I could actually tell you how much I enjoy playing around in Africa because I grew up in Nigeria when I was a kid. The game that I participated in, a lot of them are still helping me today. I am over 40 years old. But the game I played as a child growing up in my village are still helping me today. And this is something very important about this. Is that when we were playing around in the village, nobody actually told us that we were going through an education. But that education is actually more valid than the classic education that we have going to school. Now, let me explain. Now, we teach children how to read. Of course, every child needs to know how to read and write. I'm not disputing that. But the children also need to be free to be children. I remember, for example, a number of games that we played that today we could talk about focus. We never used the word focus, but what we did was exactly learning how to be focused on an objective. This was baked into the cultural activity as a child growing up in the village. Simply, for example, you take a small catapult in your hand, you are going to shoot a bird far up on top of the tree. Now, you tell me if what you are doing is not focused, for you to be able to take the bird down, a small stone inside your catapult to take a bird down high up in the sky. How do you do that if you are not leveraging the power of focus? Now, how do you do that if you are not collaborating with your team? Because you need to work with people to get to the forest first and to hunt, to know where the bird is. Because if you make noise, the bird will fly away. You see, we are now already talking about collaboration, networking, focus, aiming. That is, all these things are already baked into the system. Now, the children that are born in 2023, my son is born here in Italy. He will never be able to have that kind of life. Now, we are living in a different kind of time. Are we able to design a system, a game that is going to meet the children where they are so that they can be free to be children, yes, but they can still learn what they need to learn without taking them to maybe 1,000 years old, 1,000 years ago? So what I'm trying to say is it possible that the children can still play game? Because that is where we are today. We are living in the 21st century. Everything is fast. We know that. But can we design games that can appeal to the children and help them to love life? Instead of shooting, they are shooting people. They are just jumping down from the sky and falling down. Nobody have ever explained the psychology behind this. Help me with that.
I think so. I think you just came up with a new game idea. But yes, so exactly what you said with the shooting the bird in the tree, you could make that a virtual reality game and then put that concept in there and explain it in the game. So absolutely you can do that. And even though your child lives in Italy, you don't have that same environment. The thing is, with digital advances that we have now, you can create that environment and put it anywhere. Um, so yes, we can absolutely do that. And what we have to do is just, again, it's just about coming together. So the conversation now needs to be, how do we make those things? So we need children's focus groups that say, okay, these are the kind of things that we're interested in. This is what we'd like to see. And then we can put those suicide prevention strategies and mental resiliency techniques into that type of platform for kids to use. So those are the things that we need. So that would be where you get the idea from. Then you need universities and gaming centers and counseling agencies and coders to come together and say, I'll volunteer 10 hours this year to help with gaming this scenario or this scene. We can do this by partnering together. And it's not saying that you have to give more than what you're able to. We started the counseling center with 10 counselors that volunteered to do 2 hours a month. And then we just grew from there. So we are showing that we can become a national and potentially global. I think technically we're global now with this podcast, but we can make a global solution, and it doesn't take billions of dollars to do it, but it does take thousands of people that want to give that 1 hour, that $1, that one whatever. And it doesn't have to be to where it's a crippling gift. You know, if every therapist in the country donated 1 hour, just 1 hour a month, what impact could we do? If every family, 1.3 million kids attempted suicide in the last 2 years. Well, that was 2 years from 2020 to 2022, that 2 years where COVID was going on. That was 1.3 million people. Imagine if every family that was impacted by that gave $1. That'd be $1.3 million in a day. And we could build the game and turn things around to save lives. So it doesn't take large strides. It takes lots of small strides. And I think that's the mindset that we have to make, because a lot of people say, oh, this problem is too big. I can't solve it. And I don't think that way. I don't think that I can't solve it. I think I can start the solution. I don't have to finish it, but I can start it. And the next person that has an expertise better than mine, I have to be able to say, hey, I welcome you in this mission, and let's do the next thing, the next phase. I don't think I can take this to forever. And if I did, I would be remiss to do that. I understand that I don't know everything, but I know that if the right person comes along and they have expertise in this area, then that's what we can do. We have to start looking at what you're saying with your culture, is that we have to look at the greater good and understand, if we have that guiding principle that our mission is to make safe and caring communities, and we use that as our guiding principle, then we can evaluate everything that we do against that standard. Um, will this game, will this app, will this mentoring program, will this conversation, will this podcast, what can we do today to make a difference? And that's how we got our video library. I didn't ask for hundreds of millions of dollars because we're a new startup, and people aren't going to do that. But what I did ask was for a 1 to 2 minute video. If you can make a 1 to 2 minute video and upload it to our website that encourages a child or tells a story of how you overcame, we can make a difference in these kids' lives, because then they can see people that look like them, that have made it through some type of challenge. So the kids can go through that video library and find whoever it is that they identify with, but we are making sure those are positive messages. And you could do that on your phone. It'll take you 1 to 2 minutes. You could save a life in 1 to 2 minutes, and you can save several lives, because you don't know how many times that one helpful video is going to get played over and over and over again. So when I started doing that, I started to have NFL players recording and sending us videos, a couple of R&B artists, a couple of rappers. Um, and I hope to see more of that happen, because again, it's one for 2 minutes, but that 1 or 2 minutes on repeat for a child that says, hey, I've done that. Think about all the kids in Nigeria if they saw a video of you saying, this is where I grew up. These are the challenges that I faced. Here's how I faced them. Here's what worked. Here's what didn't. And at the end of that video, you're saying, don't give up. You can make a difference. And here's how I did it. And you can do the same. What kind of difference that would make. And then where we are with just the one you, where you are, and being the shining example that you are, because you're doing all these amazing things and you've got this podcast and you're making a difference and you're letting people's voices and stories be heard. How amplified is that voice when we can play it again and again? How amplified is that voice when we can put more than one voice, we can make it a choir? And that's all it takes. I need several people to do a 1 or 2 minute video. Speak to what you needed when you were that age. That's what I do. And it works.
Thank you. Thank you so much
It
for
works.
that works. It works because it takes the people to make things work. There is an idea that I share here often. Of course, this is usually on a political front, and when we are looking at African situation, I often say that we are tired of building strong men. It's time to build strong people, because it's people that make things happen, not a man who is strong. Because a man who is strong will always die. A people will never die, because they are a community. A people can always move mountain. If a people want to build a bridge, they can build it. No man can build a bridge. There is no bridge in the world that was built by a man. A people can cross a river. There is nothing a people cannot do. So it is the people that we need to build, because they can change the world.
Like that.
All right. I enjoyed the conversation. Now, people listen to what you're doing, they find inspiration, they want to connect with you, they want to work with you. Tell them, how can they reach you?
They can go to our website and you can put in your email address or message us, and you can sign up to be a collaborator. You can upload a video. All of that is on the website. So the website is www.ddaat-app.com. And that is for our National Suicide Prevention and School Safety Coalition. And then we also have www.flourish.foundation, which is our umbrella organization. And that's where we're leading the mission for city to city campaigns so that we can replicate this model in different areas across the globe. We'll help you build a campaign that is similar so that you can make a change in your city too. I mean, there are several cities that are just like we are. Like Charlotte has the highest teen and young adult suicide rate in the state of North Carolina, but Chicago has just as high a rate. So this is needed in so many areas, needed in rural areas as well. So wherever you are, you can make a difference. It just takes one person to get started, and that one person gets one person, and then that one person gets someone. And then we have a movement. I think that we're on our path to getting a true movement.
Thank you for that. Now, looking at what
So,
we have discussed today, looking at the situation of young people who, at the point, do take their life, and all the recommendation that you have given, and of course, all the statistics also. What would be your final thought here? How would you like to conclude the conversation? Maybe a message, maybe a kind of a retouch, or what you consider important. Please go ahead and do that.
Final message is that no matter what you're going through, choose life, embrace life, and build a bright future. That would be the message. Embrace life, and if you are feeling that you can't go on, reach out or talk to someone. Here in the US, you can dial the 988 number. There are other numbers in other countries as well. But speak to someone and let them know what you're feeling because you're probably not alone. And it just takes another broader perspective. If you can take a step back and see that this is just one small portion of your life and you've got so much more to look forward to, then that should encourage you to embrace life and move forward because the best is yet to come.
Thank you so much for that. I like that part of hope. Yeah, the best of you is yet to come, and we'll keep working on it so that when those moments come, they usually come for all of us. That you think that is the end of the road, you need to think again that no, it is not the end of the road. You're probably just hit a point of reset. It does happen for most people, no? You can hit a point of reset, and in this sense, of course, I'm saying look back to where you're coming from. Don't take your life. Your life is for you to share with people. You see, when you share what is happening to you with other people, you never know who might actually be there to help you. Yes, it might appear to you that you are lonely, you are in one place just now in that location where you are alone, but you are not really alone. Remember that in this world there are over 8 billion people. It is not possible that all of them can hate you. There are people out there who love you, who want to share with you, who want to listen to you, who want to shake your hand, who want to be there for you. But if you don't give them the chance, if you take your life, you are not giving them the chance to share the moment with you. What is happening to you now might be actually an opportunity for you to become a better version of yourself tomorrow. But this is today. Today need to pass before tomorrow can come. So it is not the end of it. Remember that there is a second chance. So give yourself a second chance to be able to see tomorrow. Because it is tomorrow that you are going to be a better version, not today. So look at it that this is, when you get to the tunnel, it's not usually bright, no? It's dark. If you think that is the end of it, you'll be shortchanging yourself. But enter into it, pass through it. You see, when you come out at the other end, you see it is bright again. So you don't need to end it before you get to the tunnel. All the challenges are happening to us because they're going to make you a better version of yourself. If you end it where it is hardest, you will not be able to see what is the brighter part on the other end. So give yourself the benefit of the doubt that this too shall pass. Yes, this too has come to pass. It has not come to stay. So don't make it come to stay by taking your life. Because if you take your life, it means that is the end. There is no chance again. But give yourself the benefit of the doubt that this tunnel, this thing that looks like a wall, you can pass through it. Yes, you can pass through it. So give yourself the chance. Thank you so much for
Absolutely.
sharing. It has been a pleasure here.
All right. Thank you.